about the latest then with our international affairs editor, Philip Turle, who's with me here on set. Philip, Francois Bayrou, I mean, he's got a bit of a balancing act ahead of him, hasn't he?
A balancing act is the way to look at it. Have you got a calculator on you, Stuart?
No, I wish I did, by the sound of it. Yeah.
I suggest you get it out because there's a lot of numbers involved in this. Now, to be quite honest with you, Francois Bayrou has been Prime Minister for a month, since the 13th of December. He is facing his speech about his general policies he's going to do this afternoon at 3 p.m. Paris time, and all of that depends on afterwards whether he can shore up enough support within the government to push through the reforms that he wants to push through. There are two major ones. First is the budget, and the second one is, of course, the pension reform, which many in the opposition are calling simply to be shelved. So that is the big problem that Francois Bayrou faces, because he doesn't have a majority in the National Assembly, so he is face to face with the possibility there could be another vote of no confidence, like the one that brought down the previous government of Michel Barnier, could also bring him down. These are the figures I was talking about. 577 MPs in the National Assembly in France. So to get legislation passed, a majority of 289 is needed. Well, Francois Bayrou doesn't have that. He's face to face with three opposition figures who are all hanging over him and who could pull the plug on his government. The first one is Marine Le Pen. Her National Rally has 124 seats. She's the lady in the middle, of course, in this picture. On the left is Jean-Luc Mélenchon of the France Unbowed Party. His party simply says, we will never vote in favour of a government that is a government of Emmanuel Macron. We want that government to fall. We want fresh presidential elections because Jean-Luc Mélenchon sees himself as being the next president of France. So they won't get the support of him. He has 71 seats. And on the right, there is the leader of the Socialist Party, Olivier Faure. He has 66 seats. He's the man who Francois Bayrou wants to seduce. He wants to bring him on board to say, if we can take those 66 seats, with all the seats we already have, that will prevent a vote of no confidence going through if the left and the far right get together to try to vote me out of office. But the problem is the socialists are not very much in favour of the pension reform. So that is the big question facing Francois Bayrou this afternoon when he makes his speech in the National Assembly. Will they join forces with him or not?
Yeah, the pension reform, you've mentioned it a couple of times. It really is the make or break issue at the moment of this for this government.
So there are really three possibilities that the opposition are calling for. First, they're saying we want this to be basically repealed, nothing more, nothing less, for at least 6 months. But there's a couple of other possibilities. One of them is that it could be shelved and delayed, or there could be concessions. Now, these are the facts of that pension reform. What France wants to do is to push the pension retirement age up to 64 from 62 years, 62 and a half years old right now, to economise between 3 to 4 billion euros a year, because the pension system already has a huge deficit of 30 billion euros, and the money's got to come from somewhere to try to reboost that pension system. Because what the government's basically saying is that if we keep the age at 62 and a half, which will be almost the youngest age of the whole of Europe, then we've got two options. One is that we either pay people less pensions, or two, we increase income tax. And as we've got no budget right now, and we need the money to push the budget through, this is all looking very grim. So this is what the Socialist Party is using as a way of trying to negotiate with the government. It all depends on what Francois Bayrou is going to announce this afternoon. Will he shelve that reform? Will he say, no, we're going to push ahead and it's going to come into effect? We really don't know what he's going to do, but it's very, very difficult to understand how the government will get through this.
And a lot of people are still blaming, of course, the French president, Emmanuel Macron, for what they see as a real political mess. He's not very popular here in France.
Well, if you thought that was gloomy enough, there's even more gloomy news, and that is the fact that both Francois Bayrou and Emmanuel Macron are very low in the opinion polls right now. Emmanuel Macron, only 21% of favourable ratings, 20% for Francois Bayrou. That's one of the lowest for a new French Prime Minister for many years. That was according to a poll held at the weekend. So they really don't have much manoeuvring ability there, not much wriggle room, and a lot of people are piling the pressure on Emmanuel Macron to say, why don't you just stand down? Why don't you call early presidential elections? That would clear the atmosphere, bring in a new government, bring in a new majority, and then France could move forward. Reply from Emmanuel Macron, I still have 2 years to go. I'm not going to stand down early. The next presidential elections are in 2027, and I'm going to stay president until then, come what may.
Philip, thanks very much. A lot more coverage of that as the day progresses, of course, here on France 24.